Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Gavin. So, Gavin, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you do and where you live.
Hi there. Yeah, my name's Gavin McKew. I live in Whitehaven, which is a really remote part of England, in the UK. And I own a few e-commerce businesses, but I'm a fractional CTO for a lot of e-commerce businesses as well. A little bit more enterprise than the businesses I own, but I've been a developer for 20 plus years. I've worked with probably hundreds of e-commerce brands within the UK, mainly, across a number of, across a number of different things. I do consultancy, that's me.
So, how did you get into the e-commerce space?
Well, when I was in school, there was no internet. I didn't have the internet in school. I was too young. And I went into college, so I was 17, I think I was 16, 17. It was the first time I kind of touched the internet. And there was no web courses or anything. There was just IT courses. It was like, this is how you use Word and this is how you use them type of things. And then the internet was kind of being born at them points. HTML was kind of Billy Basic and CSS wasn't in its foundational years. And this is like 1998, 99, like really early on. And then by the time I ended up going to university, college, stateside, there was a couple of courses that were kind of a little bit related to the web. So I studied multimedia because there was no multimedia back then was kind of like do you want to do sound editing, video editing, web included? You kind of have to, you couldn't do like now you can do course. You could probably do a course just in like CRO optimization now, like literally, like you'd probably do a degree in that, right? Or like just marketplaces. Whereas back then it was like they treated the web as a sub thing of something bigger than that. Like, do you want to get into audio, video, animation, like as a collective? So it was kind of like a crazy time. And then I kind of had a bit of a weird, because I live in quite a remote part of England, like not near a city. I live 3 hours from a city, like drive. And when I finished my degree, everyone was moving to London and Manchester and Newcastle and Leeds. They were moving to like major cities where there was web work. And I came back home, like to the lakes. I live by lakes and the sea. And I was more like kind of interested in the outdoors, but like I wanted to pursue an interest in the web. But there's no work, like it doesn't exist. Even the big companies didn't have websites back then. So I kind of like had to hustle like big time early on to get like any level of work and take like drastic level pay cuts compared to my counterparts. And then kind of hung on in there until I got good at what I did. And then when I got good at it, then it didn't matter where I lived, I suppose. You know what I mean? So kind of my story is a little bit odd because a lot of people that you'll speak to from anywhere in the UK, they'll live in one of these major cities. They'll work for one of the big guys, and they'll work for a big agency or a big brand, or it took me years to get to that point. Sorry for my accent. I'm particularly Northern English, a little bit Scottish. So I'm kind of like between Newcastle, Liverpool, and Scotland. You'll hear a little bit like the Beatles kicking in, but you'll hear a bit of Geordie kicking in, and then a little bit of Scottish kicking in at the same time. So apologies to anyone in America. That's kind of like what.
No, yeah. So I guess
what are you saying?
no, yeah. I was just gonna ask. So, because you were talking about hustling, right, to get work. Like, what did that look like for you in those days?
Well, back then it was just a case of does anybody need anything built online that I can help with? Pretty much and I don't know what I'm doing. I know this little piece of HTML, this little piece of CSS. I suppose back then it wasn't like front end and back end, we call it. Like that came in 10 years later, front end and back end. Back then it was just like there was web developers and there was web designers. That's what we titled ourselves as. Qasim will understand this massively. He's probably, I know he's a tech guy. So it was like there was web developers and web designers, and that was basically front end and back end guys. But even pre that, it was just there was web guys, right? Like pre that, there was just somebody that can do something on the internet and potentially work out how to connect data to that database or change what that looks like on the front end. The tech hadn't caught up with what we were doing as devs. It was very, very it was odd times. I can't even. It's almost like hard to remember what it was like back then. There was a big, the first break I got was, I suppose, there was a big Horston brands were huge back then, remember? Like the Horston companies were like the leaders in tech. It's like, because you've got a few servers and you allow developers to do something. So it was kind of like, there was no agencies really. And there was a big agency called Easy Space. You know, like you might have seen them, like the little elephant. They might exist in America, and they might have at some point many moons ago. But they did some big brands, and I suppose they were like the GoDaddy 20 years ago. And they had like a bit of a web division where they'd sell a builder like a 2-page website, and you'd have to like, there was no CMS. You couldn't install WordPress or Joomla or like there was none of that rubbish. It was like he's a server, FTP it up, knock something up in Dreamweaver, put it together and put that on. And you kind of, from that position, you kind of learn where you lied in the stature of things. And you kind of grinding it kind of became, nobody knew what they were doing though. Like absolutely, not even the guy in charge of the company, right? So the host and company guy didn't know what he needed to do. There was no caching services. There was nothing from server development side. Like it just hadn't been thought out. It was just happening whilst everyone was working out what that looked like. But they were selling it. And I suppose as the big thing that happened is everyone's internet speeds got quicker and the reliance on them internet speed got quicker. And then that kind of transcended into big corporations jumping on board. And then 10 years later, CMSs existed, Joomla, WordPress, Shopify a little bit later. And then everybody could then get on board, as opposed to like it being the big corporations. And then the army then exists. And we are where we are now because of that. And that's a great space. But yeah, so I've worked for like, I learned from the ground up. I learned how to, I like, you have to do it first. You can't, the difficulty is, and Qasim will agree with this. I know a little bit about what you both do. So I'm not, thing is that there's a lot of people who like have like some real high level kind of, they can talk incredibly high level, like, but they couldn't do anything. Like they can talk about it all they want, but like, they don't really know what's happened. Do you know what I mean? They don't actually know how Shopify CDM works. Like they don't have a clue. They don't even want to know. And I suppose it doesn't matter, but it kind of does when you're dealing with big companies now. Do you know what I mean? It kind of does. Fastly goes down, you're a little bit screwed. Cloudflare goes down, you're a little bit screwed. So there's kind of elements of like the ground up guys that have done it for 20 years, they know the shizzle. The new kids get an ability to do stuff without being techie. Yeah, I get that. But there's only so far you can take that before you have to hand over there's only so far that can happen. So yeah, that's kind of my story. And I still live in that place that I did it on. And then when I suppose I've run a few businesses and I've worked for big clients. And when you're pitching for clients within the UK, the first question is how close you are to London. And I'm 7 hours from London. There's no further place in England that's further away. Like I'm an hour and 10 minutes drive to a motorway, i.e. a freeway. An hour and 10 minutes I have to drive before I get to a freeway, right? That's how far. So, and in America, that might be like not unusual, but like in England, you can't drive. There's no way in England like it takes an hour and 10 minutes to get to a freeway, right? And the problem I faced for a lot of years was do I move to London? Do I move to Manchester? The opportunities were massive, but then the cost of living's more. There's a whole kind of lifestyle switch. And I was like, I'm going to ride this out. And I did. I've ran my own businesses, my own econ companies, kind of managing through. And then kind of probably about 2 years before COVID hit, for whatever reason, companies in London and Manchester wanted the best talent as opposed to, like, you guys can get UK companies now. Like 5 years ago, you wouldn't have had a chance, right? Not a chance. Yeah. American guys on the phone telling us they can change the world. They can get you to £1 million a month MRR, more than what you're doing. How are you going to do that? It doesn't matter that you guys are in Dallas or somewhere like that, I think, are you? I don't know.
I'm in Dallas. I'm in Dallas. Yeah, I'm in Dallas and Qasim's in Pakistan.
Yeah. So like and now we're kind of that's kind of what I did there. And I know initially, Dan, that you contacted me about one of my brands called Frederic St James, which I know is going to be probably the next question on how we got there. We'll kind of go back. I talk a lot. I think a lot. I'm on the spectrum, so I'm kind of a little bit. My mind kind of goes a little bit as it needs to.
I think Qasim had a question.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, sorry, Qasim. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I will ask later.
No, Qasim. Honestly, definitely, you hit me.
Okay. In fact, I was going a bit off. In fact, there was another question in my mind, like why you are living over there and you are already telling this. So,
as well. Where I live, Qasim, and this is a good kind of question. Actually, I think is where I live is like house prices are like a fifth of the price of what they are in London, right? Like there's no crime. Schools are great.
Oh.
I live by the sea. I've got mountains 3 minutes away. I've got it, like, it's kind of one of those like Canadian type places to live, I suppose, it's a Lake District where I live, but it's kind of, even though the opportunities for work can be better, like they can be better for you. Like you guys pick up and go to New York, you'll 3x your salary in 2 weeks. You know you will, but you're not going to do it because Dallas is, you're just not. So it's the same kind of argument in some ways of going, well, this is what I get in terms of quality of life and lifestyle versus I'm going to vouch on the fact that I'm good at what I do. And eventually the people will eventually click on to what that is, right? And that bet 15 years ago, 20 years ago paid off because now it happens. Do you know what I mean? Now it's not an issue. You know what I mean? Like now we can have these Zoom calls and I can speak to CEOs of companies doing 200 million pounds, like no problem. And they don't mind that I live because what really matters is that they can get into my head. We can talk about how we can fix some of their issues, much like you guys do, and work through those solutions. Irrelevance of where, like, why does it matter? Like it's completely pointless. I understand you can get more done in an office if you're around people. If you're the actual CTO full time and you're there and you're getting them pumped and you're motivating them, I get that. But if you're working to pick your brains fractionally for some level of degree of benefit to them, I could live on the moon. Why does it matter?
By the way, in terms of your brands, what are you responsible for?
Oh, well, man, yeah, I mean, the brands responsibility is a tough one. Like you get responsibility when you work for clients. When you're working for your own brands, you just kind of you don't there's no responsibility. You just kind of get on with whatever needs done, as we all know. So there's kind of a level of like, what can I pick up as opposed to responsibility? So what can I help with? What can I move forward? And I think when you kind of own your own brands and you work for other brands, if you've had brands or you've done things within brands, I think that the greatest thing I ever learned was to learn. Like it's the greatest skill I ever learned at university. It's like if somebody gives you a piece of software and you need to know how to do it, you've got to be able to do that in the top 20% of people within a particular period of time quickly. If it's a new programming language, if it's how Facebook ads work now as opposed to what they work like 5 years ago, like just pick it up and learn it quickly. So I think the responsibilities within, I built the website, set the ads up, I find the products, I source them over, get them all, like the whole, like whatever, like it's matterless. Like it, like what does this, like so like if we talk about like Frederic St James and which will link nicely into what you've just said, I was working as a CTO for a brand that's 3 hours away from me, like a major sports retailer. So what they do is they sell Adidas shoes, Asics shoes, New Balance shoes for runwear and sportswear. They sell bikes, they're a big player. And in about 2019, 2020, these guys were doing like 15 million pounds only in the UK market online. And so they buy in and they store it in their warehouse and they ship these products. And the website was terrible. It was on Magento, and I was a Magento dev for 9 years. Like I lived in that world. I pretty much despise it these days, but I was a dev in that land for a long time. And I got asked to be the CTO of this brand. And you don't get asked when you live where I live to be a CTO of a big brand when you live so far away. And it was kind of at that remote time. So I kind of took the role. I suppose the things that kind of that led into was, we changed everything of the ecosystem. We re-platformed them, changed WMS, changed the ERP, looked at every individual department and how they were working, and changed literally like every aspect of that company. So there was full-on efficiencies across what they did. I was the only staff member to change within that whole department in that 3 years. And within that 2 years, 4 months, that brand was doing 45 million pounds with no extra traffic, right? Nothing. Right. So it went from 15 million to 45 million in a little over 2 years, right? And it was just because there was so many inefficiencies in a brand, like so many, like from how they listed products to where they sourced them to the buyers and even knowing what they bought and customer service knowing what to respond to. And that brand did amazing. But getting on to Frederic St James, the head of e-commerce at the time that was working within that brand, and I was the CTO, we were like, we can do this for so many other companies. Like, we don't need to do it. Like, this is easy. This is just so, like, this isn't complicated to us. And we made a bet with each other before we left our jobs as well that we could start. We were talking about, can you start a brand now, today? Like, this is June last year, by the way, with no money. And by no money, I don't mean like people say no money and they've got like 50 grand in the bank. It's like, that's not no money. It's like, I mean, physically no money, like nothing. Can we do it? So at the time, I got married in Italy. I got engaged in Italy. I go to Italy quite a lot with my family. I was looking for an Italian leather duffel bag, and everyone in England was selling these bags for like £600, so $700. That's it. And I was like, they're like 150 euros, so like less than $150 in Italy. I can get a flight for 80 quid and get one and come back. So we were looking for niches, and at this time I just happened to be looking for this duffel bag, and I reached out to a few factories out there. 5 of them sent me like 3 bags each as samples for nothing, because I said I was starting a brand. So then from that position, I was like, these bags are amazing. My wife has some designer bags that were way worse quality than these bags. So at this point, we started doing this for 3 or 4 factories, some in Turkey, some in India, and we ended up with about 100 bags for free, like literally for nothing. Some of them, so we started a brand. So Frederic St James, the name, my son's called Fred. His full title's Frederic, but he's called Fred. And his middle name is James. And he goes to St James's school. And Frederic James was taken on the .com. And Frederic St James was not. And it sounded quite affluent, I say. So I thought, that's a great name for a brand. We'll have that one. So Frederic St James was born. I knew that the price point for these items in this country were particularly high. We were already running an ad spend for one of the brands we were looking after outside of work. These guys were doing £1 million a month on ads, and we were looking after all their Google ad spend anyway. So like we'd done this for so many brands previously. So we can wear proper CMO hats all the time. Like there are a 10-15% contingency that can run ads on Google better than what me and Max could, but like we can run them as well as pretty much most agencies. So we were like, right, let's go. Not being fired, I've just done this a lot. So you get your tech head off and you get your marketing hat on. And anyway, so we had these bags. I think we put £20, just about $25 on a credit card to launch Shopify, and £25 on ads. And then we just flipped everything like over and over and over and over and over for last June. And when we got to December, like from June last year to December, I think in December we did about £100,000 of revenue. Like we were like we were still it's a side gig of a side gig. This, do you know what I mean? It's not even a real. And Frederic St James kind of we started last year and it probably did £400,000 of revenue, but its margin's strong. It's probably got 30% margin in that. It probably made about £95,000 in from actually nothing though, like, and a little bit of time, like no focus. So I think kind of the things we were delivering upon across with the bigger brands, and you guys will know this, like when you see behind the curtain of brands doing £50 million, everyone assumes that a £50 million brand is doing everything right. And honestly, £50 million brands are doing a million things more wrong than the £2 million brand. Like the only thing that matters in e-com, like literally, like there's only 2 things that matter: how much traffic you get and how much of that you convert. That's it. Not as long as you get your price and your product right and you don't be an idiot and try to bottom out market. But they're the only 2 metrics that matter. And the biggest difference between the smaller brands and the bigger brands is that the smaller brands can't afford as much traffic as the bigger brands. That's it. That's all it is. They can afford less eyes. All it is. So most of the time when you're dealing with a brand that's doing, let's say, £3 million a year, £5 million a year, they just don't have enough eyes. It's marketing as opposed to anything else. Tech stack's probably half decent. They're probably better than a lot of big brands. So from there, I now fractionally CTO. I talk a lot, guys, and I probably I do.
No, I think it's good. Yeah, I guess like what I would ask. So, in terms of Frederic St James, right? In terms of, what would you say right now is priority number one for? I mean, you mentioned 100K in a month. So I guess like what is your number one priority? I guess like for the next like 3 to 6 months.
I think, to be honest, what I found is the leather market is quite seasonal, more so than I would assume. I assumed that the leather market wasn't very seasonal before I went into it. I was like, yeah, everyone buys leather bags like any time of the year. And they don't. Like Q4 is where it lives, really. You know what I mean? Like it is like it's a big bump in that time. So the focus on that brand, I don't have a lot of time to put into it, to be honest, is a real answer. Max, who's my business partner within that brand, his wife has been able to leave work and just do that full time. So this brand works like this. You order an Italian leather bag off that website. We have a contract with a factory in Italy that makes really good bags. They then ship them to Max's house in England, and then we ship them out, and we say 10-day delivery. So we could increase conversions 20-fold and say we could get custom-made bags. You could order bulk buying of those bags. Like there's a million things we could do with that brand, like a million. If we raised probably 300K, 500K, could easily be a 10, 15 million pound brand a year, like without a lot of work. I'm kind of the point has been proven, I suppose, to be part of that brand. I imagine we'll probably sell it in probably the next 6 to 8 months.
So do you think, just, I'm sorry to cut you, but I was just curious, like, so do you think that an e-com brand can scale in 2023 without spending ad dollars, just from your
Oh
experience?
no way. No, you need there's absolutely no chance. Like, forget that. You need to be spending 30 to 40% on your product. You need to be spending 34% to sell that product, and you need to be keeping 20, 30, 40% of that product. Like, end of story. Like, you can't scale otherwise. Like,
Right.
unless you find a product that no one else has got hold of, or unless you've got a huge following already, the influencer based things, kind of like, it's big, but it's a nowhere. Like, reality is how to scale a brand. It's like you get more eyes and you convert more of those eyes. Like, that's it.
Where have you seen, where have you, you're talking about Google, but I guess like in 2023, where have you seen like the most conversions? Like
Oh,
TikTok, Instagram?
yeah. Everyone knows TikTok's the one right now. Like, everyone, come on, like, and then we'll get onto AI conversations. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. But yeah, TikTok's kind of like, the audience age range has drastically changed, like, hugely. Like, within Frederic St James, though, this is honestly true. We literally just run PLA ads on Google only. Like, that's it. Like, nothing else. So, like, that's why with a brand like that, it's almost worthwhile somebody getting it and going, like, the things we could, like, because we've now got exclusive contract with this to sell these particular bags within certain regions worldwide, and only they can sell them as well. So we're actually riding off the back of a brand. I spoke to a few factories about getting custom bags made, what that would look like in terms of finances. And then I was speaking to, like, Paul Richardson, who's like, he was one of the directors of Gymshark. He now owns Birmingham City Football Club.
Yeah.
And we were having a natter on link on, and he was like, we potentially could raise a few quid to get this done. And I was like, yeah, but the amount of work, like, I can do it. Like, I definitely can, but I'm kind of in somewhere else. But like, I think Frederic St James was a point proven exercise to two guys who live in ecom, live in tech, that cannot be done today. The thing that's great is the product. Like, the absolute key thing is in that type of model, though, is the product has to be great. Like, it has to be. Like, don't move rubbish, whatever it is. If you sell rubbish, you're screwed. Like, people that say, like, find the winning product, like that's
Well,
fluff. It's
right, right. But so having a good product, so I'm just curious, like, so, you've been in this space for a long time, but do you think that, so what about people, or I don't know if you guys do this at all, but like selling certain products also on eBay, Amazon, have you
Oh
like
no,
thought,
Dan! I know that you were a massive eBay guy. I know you're ex-it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
I'm involved in it. Like, eBay's a little bit flat at the moment. Amazon's kind of. If you're building a brand, if you want to flip a product, like, and you don't know anything about Google Ads, and you can find something cheap, and you're a bit of a hustler, and you can go, like, brilliant. Like, go and find a product and flip it on them channels, like, all day long, and then look out for the new ones. Like, bang it on Etsy, do it that way. Like, there's a whole, like, for the non-tech eBay guys. But I mean, in terms of, like, my day-to-day work as, like, fractional CDO within brands, right? So I get a phone call from a guy who's got a brand, and does 70 million pounds, and they're like, this is what we're doing. So I kind of live within the brand world, right? But in terms of, like, the 19-year-old kid that wants to, like, buy a product and flip it, like, hey, if you can do it and get away with it and you don't have any cost. The big issue we have compared to the guys who are doing 60 million, 100 million, 90 million, and this is true, Dan Qasim, this is, like, implicitly true, is us three all pay taxes, right? Remember that, right? We all pay taxes. So the guy is doing 100 million. Trust me, his ad account, that the money that's in his ad account that he can spend on ads isn't being taxed. Okay? His ad account is not being taxed. So before that's even in, he's 50% up on you, right? So when somebody gets an exit, and I won't name names, but let somebody gets an exit, 80 million quid. It gets put somewhere nice and friendly, right? Then from that friendly scenario about being put, then he starts another brand. But that money that's there lives in a nice, friendly, non-taxable thing. So he's got twice as much money to spend on ads as you have, or that brand that thinks he can bootstrap it. And then, and then he's buying his products a lot from that product, and then he's sourced them through. So there's a lot of things in e-com, specifically in the UK market, that you set up not to win. Like, it's very hard to win. Like, it's because you've kind of got to think like they do.
Right.
And they think they principally, if you get 20 million pounds to start a brand tomorrow, you make sure that 20 million pound isn't taxed. You make sure it lives somewhere very nice. And
Yeah,
when it isn't
yeah.
nice, you need to give yourself leverage. And then the ad spend lives in that nice tax base. So therefore, you can spend twice the amount of money on ads as they can. Your cost per acquisition is less.
Right,
And
right.
and and again, everybody thinks too small. Everybody thinks too, like anyone. Like I don't care if you sell anything, like however small. Like you're thinking way too small. Like immediately you go, and I want to do 5 million quid. And I'm going, yeah, but there'll be a company that's making 100 million quid that's doing it in a tax split. Like they're not paying tax on their ads, they're not paying tax on their products. And you're going to try and compete them to get the 5 million quid. Stop it. Like right now. Just find the way out of that, like quickly. So,
Yeah.
and the guys and the brands I work with of the size I'm currently working with in my professional life, man, like if they don't live in the world that we live in, like us guys and the guys we speak to live in. But that makes it they're not good at ads. They're actually rubbish. They don't care about the tech stack because they can throw money at it. They can throw double the money at it you can. And the harsh realities of ecom are the realities of ecom, and that's how brutal it is. And so when I kind of see the dropshippers of the world and like, yeah, you know, the guys in the bedrooms, and that's brilliant. Like I did that. We all did that probably. Um, that's great. You can probably put a deposit down for a house and you can maybe etch a bit of learning across the way. The greatest thing about that is the education along the way. But the
100%.
realities are, if you want to be the big player in selling mattresses in America, so a mattress Mac, right? Right, we're mattress Mac, okay?
Yeah. The Texas
You
guy, by
aren't,
the way.
yeah. Well, I mean, even I know mattress Mac, but I'm just using
Yeah.
this as a, like, I'm not
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah.
What do you think mattress Mac is paying tax? Like, like, are you delusional? Like, where do you think his money go? Like, are you absolutely insane? Look, his leverage above everybody else is that wherever that money sits, he has twice as much money as anyone else. Because you pay 50% taxes and so do I. So no matter how good you are, you're going to be twice as good at ads as he is. You're going to get twice the CAC. You're going to get twice the MRR. It's like, no, I get bollocks. No way. So what you've got to do is get enough money to get that sorted, right? That's the leverage. So when I see behind the curtain of all these big brands and all the the 1 to 3 million guys are fine, and 1 to 12, that's fine. But the second that you can convert that into what that looks like, where you can compete with the big guys, like the proper guys, the 100 million guys, there's commonalities across all of them. Like there isn't one that doesn't do that. Imagine having twice your ad spend on an 80 million pound brand. You can't lose. You'd have to be an idiot to lose, right? Imagine buying your product at 30% less than they do.
No, that's
Not because
true.
you've got 80, and then you can negotiate massive prices off what they do. So there's a full monopoly going on, like worldwide in everything, not just in
Right.
ecom.
That's true.
And it's like I kind of I'm probably one of the few to speak out about it. They don't they like there aren't many that just say that's what's happening. That's really what's happening. And the realities are the realities. You can be the best ad guy, the best tech. Like Dan, you're an eBay, like you are a hustler, right? You're a salesman. Like you understand like product market fit. Qasim's like the tech guy. He's got like an amazing tech that he knows how that delivers online. I'm probably like I'm a tech guy meets a commercial guy, like off what that works. So like my commercials are really strong. And I think kind of when you bring like and then the behind the curtain thing, like raise VC money, like pump that through. Like, what do you think VCs are giving money and telling people not to put them in places they need to be? Come on, man. Like the VCs, they waste the most money in the world in ecom. Like half their IDs are rubbish. The execution's probably worse than rubbish. But there's an element where, like, it's a money spunk, is what it is, man. And like, and it annoys the hell out of me because I'm willing to say what's happening, like really happening, as opposed to what people think's happening. So
No,
to get
that's
into any
important.
niche, yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of and I rant a lot. I have a lot of but no, yeah. So Frederic St James, getting back to that brand, we'll probably sell it in 6 months. The opportunities with that brand are ridiculous, right? Somebody needs to go out and raise £500,000, come back, get that factory to make them some custom bags, put some brilliant ads behind it, put it worldwide, run ads worldwide. We only run ads in the UK. Put it on all social media across all platforms. The tech stack's pretty solid. One thing that I will say is pretty interesting, and you guys are like this, is I think you can have 70% of the stack that a £1 billion company has for 4% of the cost, right? And I think that's a massive transitional thing that no one's like. you can, you can run like, shop, Gymshark's doing £1 billion. So you can have the same platform they do. You can run on the same email software they do. You can have the same marketing tools as you have the same bundle apps. You can have like literally you can get to 70% of their stack. It's only when you really get into like AI, personalization, full on like, you can't afford Nostr or things that are kind of super high end. You're not putting NetSuite in, but that's only the 30% of the top that they need to get the cream on the top. You can have 70% of the stack of £1 billion company for 0.3% of their cost of that stack. And that's bananas. So that does allow massive leverage within like what you can deliver, on.
No,
I think that's a real important point.
No, 100%. Well, we have to wrap, but Gavin, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot, and I'm hoping you can make a lot of money selling Frederic St. James. I'm wishing the best of luck, and we're rooting for you.
Yeah, it'll go for a few quid. You guys, Dan, I love your Twitter hustle, like the way that you kind of approach that, like you're nailing it. Qasim, like your software stack level is strong. Keep pushing. Like it's good. Like you guys together are going to, like, I know you want to work together since 2019. I can see how that dynamic works well. You can build an amazing agency. Like you guys could build something like proper strong because you've got that hustle aside. You've got the tech side at that end. You're in the one thing I will say to you guys though is you guys are looking to put you're probably looking to deal with companies that are a little bit too small, right? Like, so I'm going to say this, right? So like you like
Yep.
I'm not saying that you aren't going to get lots of bread and butter. You guys have got loads of clients, right? But you guys, because of your hustle and because of your thing, you can tell them you got 4 devs on board. You guys could get £80 million brands, £100 million brands on board. Like you can't, like they'll have you. Because when they get to that corporation fluffy level, they need the hustle guy to come back in because it's been lost. And I found that in what I do. So like when I went at Dust.com, right? And Dust.com sell beds. And it was the founder of a guy called Jason Walker who owns Victoria Plum. And he started selling beds and bed sheets. And they're big, they're like 60 million quid. So like $70 million. But like they've got that corporate that somebody like you, Dan, and somebody like you, Qasim, going in. Like they don't have a dev in the building, like none. Everything outsourced. For any dev that talks about anything to do with dev, they're just like, that sounds amazing. And then because they've went to corporate at C-suite level, somebody like you, Dan, like cuts right through because it's like the fluff's just gone. So it's kind of do you know what I mean? And because it's become like this. Well, I don't handle that. That guy handles that type thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah. And that happens at like I don't know how big of a brands you guys might deal with £100 million brands. I don't know, but
we've had some bigger clients. I mean, I think where we're at now, Gavin, is that some of the bigger clients feel like smaller projects. So it's kind of like we do a small project for them, and they like the work, and then we're like looking to kind of do more and more work for them. I think it's like some of these larger companies might say, okay, let me just see what you guys got, and they like the work, and then we can go from there.
Amazing. Well, listen, guys, amazing to chat. Keep going.
Thank you.
Hopefully speak soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thanks, Gavin.
Bye, guys. Bye.
All right, bye.